So, Kalam is really just it's really just like logic, rationality, metaphysics, or theological rhetoric, right? There's so many different ways to um, explain what it means, and if you were to want to read a few books to actually learn Kalam, I would recommend the ones that I'm going to tell you about now. First, I actually think this is a really good, if you wanted to read the closest thing to a Kalamic uh, translation of the Quran, right? One that's very focused on being rational, right? And it's a good explanation, right? It's a tafsir, Muhammad Assad. Like, even if you read the wiki page, it says, oh, he was Mu'tazilite. He's not really Mu'tazilite, but he does reference Zamakhshari a few times in his tafsir, and one second. He even mentions some of the people he references, right? And I believe so. He mentions Ibn Taymiyyah a few times too, right? So it's not Mu'tazilite. It's just that he uses some of their work. Zamakhshari, there it is. But he also uses Razi, Suyuti, right? Anyways, it's a pretty good way to approach the Quran, and I like his explanations and stuff. So you kind of have to approach it as if it's challenging you. Don't try to sometimes we approach the Quran too dogmatically, like, oh, the Quran, like we kind of worship it to the point where we're not trying to listen to it or learn from it. So try to approach it differently. Try to let it challenge you a little bit. And you don't have to read this, but it's okay if you want to read like a wiki page explaining this. And I would also recommend reading about Plato's theory of forms, because the next book is, this is from Abyssinia. This book is very much, so this book from Abyssinia, a lot of people don't talk about it, but it's pretty significant, because a lot of people talk about this book, right, from Al-Ghazali, but they don't realize that a lot of what he's responding to is originally from here, from Abyssinia's book, right? So in order to understand this book, you got to read this book, right? Because that's where it's coming. That's what he's arguing against. And they consider him to be a Platonist, because he'll mention concepts like the theory of forms that come before matter, which is basically, it's not that complicated, but it's good to learn about it like on Wikipedia before you go into this, because it gives you like a summary. And it's a very confusing book, but you have to just kind of approach it thinking, look, just try to learn whatever you can from it. Don't think you're going to understand every little thing in it, because even the way they write is very he just says way too much, and it's like gives you a headache, but you kind of have to grind through it. It's a good book though. I like it, and it has some good arguments. You can learn a lot from it. And then if you want to read this next, but you don't actually have to read this, because this actually quotes it. So it kind of you could read this by reading this. But you could read this first if you want. But this is also kind of a confusing book from Ibn Rushd. But, one second. Yeah, they're mostly arguing about, can God be temporally related to the universe and all this stuff. But yeah, it's if you want to learn Kalam, I would say try to read these books. They're a little confusing. But, you can learn a lot from them. Don't expect everything to be, even though it's called the incoherence of the incoherence, both of these books say some incoherent things. So don't worry. It's not, if you're a little confused, don't feel like, oh, I'm an idiot. It's just old writing. It's old writing books, you know what I mean? And they're translated, so you're always going to be a little confused. But yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask me.